Did you know that our skin bacteria could also enjoy a good traditional tea time? I'm Mathias Fleury, Head of Category for Active Ingredients in Givaudan Active Beauty, and this is my Masterclass. In this video, I will guide you through the wonderful journey of our latest ingredient development. You will discover how we leveraged on our biotech expertise, such as biocatalysis and microbiomics, to craft a powerful new brightening active. It is based on a super antioxidant extracted from one of the most inspiring plants in this planet, the green tea. This new active targets all the classical pathways of the pigmentation mechanism in the skin for an optimal efficacy, but with an extra twist based on a synergistic prebiotic activity. So let's dive together in the exciting story of Illuminyl 388. And to begin with, let me welcome our Scientific Director for Biotechnologies, Daniel, so that he can share with you some of the key aspects of this development. So Daniel, thank you for joining us.
Hello, Matthias.
I know you will be able to share some of your passion about this topic today. And first, I'd like you to remind us how Active Beauty built its expertise in biocatalysis and why we decided to work on polyphenols at first.
In 2004, the team started a survey about the molecules used in cosmetics. And among these molecules, polyphenols were found to be very attractive. But the use of polyphenols was not so high because they are very poorly water-soluble substances and very sensitive to oxygen. So what we decided is to see if new molecules, new polyphenols derivative, being more water-soluble and very resistant to oxidation, could be good cosmetics and eventually cosmetics breakthrough. So we had in mind three ideas. First, mimic substances that exist in nature. Second, these substances that mimic substances existing in nature, including sugars. And because the sugars are very highly water-soluble. And at the end, to see if a combination including sugars and polyphenol could be separated by enzymes from the skin in order to recover the original polyphenol. So, new molecules deriving from polyphenols, combining the properties of this polyphenol and the new properties due to in these combinations, were named by us augmented polyphenols.
Okay, so that's a very clever strategy that you came up with. How did you choose the sugar that you used, and how did you perform the glycosylation ultimately?
Yes, in nature, glucose is the most abundant sugar. And also, it is very water soluble, and also it exists in a lot of combination, in a lot of substances that we can mimic. So glucose was clearly the sugar to use for our augmented polyphenols, and there will be glucosylated polyphenol. Regarding the enzyme, so there are a lot of enzymes for doing this kind of reaction, and they are definitively better than chemistry, because chemistry is a nightmare for organic chemists. So for us, having enzymes was an evidence. So we decided to select an enzyme, dextran sucrase, that makes glucoside, and then we will use sucrose, that is a donor of glucose, and at the end we will have some derivatives obtained with this enzyme. The enzyme will be produced by fermentation, and we optimize the production of the enzyme by fermentation. We optimize the reaction condition. In addition of that, we go on the purification of the product, because it is necessary to purify, and then we fix the analytical conditions. In 2006, we made a patent, and now the patent is granted in most of the geographical areas.
Perfect. And today, as you know, we will be talking a lot about EGCG. So can you explain us a little bit what is this molecule, what is this polyphenol?
EGCG is a combination between epigallocatechin and gallic acid. This is why its name is epigallocatechin galate. EGCG is found in green tea, and green tea, as you said, is the most one of the most consumed beverage in the world. Green tea leaves contain about 40% of polyphenols, and in these polyphenols, EGCG is the most abundant one. EGCG is a molecule which contains two rings, A and B, and both are linked by a third ring, which is ring C. The rings are decorated by oxygen atoms, and the result is a phenol. It is why the name is polyphenols. So, but the 8 hydroxyl groups are 5 on epigallocatechin and 3 on gallic acid. For epigallocatechin galate, it is a very high, very well-known antioxidant. It is a trap of electron. It prevents regarding the formation of reactive oxygen species. And what we made, it was clearly augmented EGCG due to glucosylation.
Because I understand that there is a lot of potential into the EGCG for cosmetic application.
Yes, indeed. So EGCG is more than an antioxidant. It is a multi-talented molecule. There is a big lot of scientific papers about the properties of EGCG.
Okay, so the strategy was to glycosylate EGCG, and what did you obtain at the end? What makes this product, so Illuminyl, what becomes Illuminyl, what makes it so unique, I would say?
So, as I said before, Illuminyl, EGCG glucoside, is obtained using the enzyme dextrosucrase. The reaction can be done in water, but the enzymes tolerate only a very low amount of EGCG, no more than 2 grams per liter. And in addition of that, as I said, there are 8 hydroxyl groups, and the enzyme can add the glucose on each, more or less, each hydroxyl group. So what we wanted is to have a reaction much more efficient than that we have in water, and also a high selectivity in order at the end to have almost a pure product. So we screened several solvents, and green solvents in particular, and we found only one that was able to combine very high efficiency and very high selectivity. It means that the glucoside in the position 4'O is more than 80% of the glucoside. So it was completely unexpected, but we succeeded in this, in finding a way to produce efficiently and in a very efficient way, in a very selective way, with very high purity.
And we've talked a lot about stability and solubility, so I guess you can share also some data about that.
First of all, what we did, we filed a patent for the process and the product. And regarding the process, the research report says, so the process is novel and inventive. So this is very great and very important, and also very rare. It is not very common to have this kind of success. Regarding solubility, the solubility of the augmented EGCG is more than 8 times that of the natural molecule EGCG, and even more after that. It means that there are a lot of interactions between this form with water, and then we can expect that there will be a lot of interaction with cellular constituents. And regarding the stability, the sensitivity to oxygen, this glucoside is for sure much more stable than EGCG, at least 2 times more stable, and also it is more stable than the other possible monophenol. In conclusion, we made a bet regarding the conversion of EGCG in one monoglucoside, and we succeeded. At the end, we have a success regarding the result, means solubility and also stability on oxygen. This is a process that is clearly precision biocatalysis, and this process is clearly consistent with what we have with green chemistry.
Excellent. So I think it's very clear now what's unique about Illuminyl, and thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us today and to share these details with all your patients. And we'll move forward with the presentation of this ingredient.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you.
So as you can see, biocatalysis is at the heart of our innovation for many years. It has been driving some key successes in our range for the past few years, and I'm sure it will do so again in the future, starting today with Illuminyl. To move forward, I'd like to welcome Chloe, our R&D project manager for this development. Chloe will help me to guide you through the biological evaluation of this new ingredient. Chloe, thanks a lot for joining us.
Hello Matthias, I'm glad to be here.
I'm sure we will all benefit from your great expertise. So I think one of the questions that we need to address right away is the fact that even after glycosylation, we didn't lose any of the natural benefits of the native EGCG molecule, right?
Yes, you're right, Matthias. It's a very good point. As explained by Daniel, EGCG is a strong antioxidant molecule. And to be sure that we did not lose any of this great activity, we have compared the antioxidant power of EGCG and Illuminyl on keratinocytes. After inducing an oxidative stress, we have shown that the production of intracellular reactive oxygen species was significantly reduced by both EGCG and Illuminyl, with a similar efficacy up to 67%. So that proves that the glycosylation doesn't impact this main benefit of EGCG.
Perfect. So that's the first re-answering fact. Daniel was mentioning earlier that the fact of glycosylating a molecule may increase its biodisponibility. I'm sure that's something that you also want to talk about.
Yes, indeed. Glycosylation is a promising strategy to improve the stability, but also the skin affinity and thus the penetration of a molecule. So we have used the confocal Raman spectroscopy to compare the penetration of EGCG and Illuminyl into the skin. The confocal Raman spectroscopy is a powerful tool used in several scientific fields that allow to track the penetration of a molecule. This method is based on the energy transfer between the light emitted by the Raman laser and the material. Those gain and loss of energy are translated into a Raman spectra specific of a molecule that allow to track and quantify the molecule into a tissue. So we have worked at the ex vivo level and we have topically applied EGCG or Illuminyl onto a skin explant for 8 hours, and we have shown that the penetration of Illuminyl was significantly increased by 90% in comparison to the penetration of EGCG. And Illuminyl has reached 65 micrometers into the epidermis. So we are launching on the market an effective and powerful derivative of EGCG with Illuminyl with a higher skin affinity.
That's some impressive results indeed. And another thing that we've mentioned before is the fact that with the glycosylation, we could open the door to new pathways or new biological activities. And I know this is something that you also highlighted in your studies, and I have in mind in particular the so-called GLUT carriers.
The famous one. Yes, effectively, as the biodisponibility of Illuminyl was higher, we wanted to understand the mechanism of action behind it. And in the scientific literature, the delivery of molecules using this GLUT carrier, the carrier of the glucose, has grown markedly in recent years. To give you an example, the glycosylation of anti-cancer drugs improved their delivery. So we have hypothesized that by adding this glycosyl pattern on EGCG, that might increase its affinity for the GLUT carrier, and then its penetration through the skin. So we have done a molecular docking, comparing the affinity of both EGCG or Illuminyl with the GLUT carrier, and indeed we have proved that the affinity of Illuminyl was higher than the EGCG.
Okay, so that's some exciting lead for the efficacy of the molecule after that. So thanks a lot, Chloe, for those first insights. I think it's really demonstrating the benefits of glycosylating this EGCG molecule.
Yes, right, definitely.
So now I'd like to take a few minutes to go back to some basics and talk about the skin pigmentation mechanisms. To better understand how our active can have such a great brightening activity on the skin, it is crucial to go back to some basics and have a clear comprehension of the skin pigmentation mechanism. The natural pigmentation mechanism, which may be reinforced by external factors such as oxidation or UV exposure, begins with the upregulation of the melanogenesis process. This drives the activity of some key enzymes such as tyrosinase, which have a direct impact on the melanin synthesis. This all happens in the melanosomes, which are organelles that you can find in the melanocytes. During the pigmentation process, there will be more and more melanosomes, and they will evolve through different stages. We talk about the melanosomes maturation. Then they will travel to the dendrites of the melanocytes to reach the surrounding keratinocytes where the melanin will be transferred. We talk about the endocytosis. The beauty of Illuminyl is that it targets directly all those stages of the pigmentation process. This was demonstrated by transcriptomics study performed by our experts, monitoring the activity of Illuminyl on some key genes involved in the pigmentation process. On a co-culture of melanocytes and keratinocytes, it was possible to observe a strong downregulation of genes such as KIT or MITF, which are directly regulating the melanogenesis process. It also directly inhibits the tyrosinase activity and the activity of the tyrosinase-related protein. But what's even better with Illuminyl is that it will directly inhibit the melanosomes' biogenesis, their creation and their maturation, but even also the direct transfer of the melanin to the keratinocytes. All those different genes were impacted with a strong downregulation from 50 to more than 300%. Obviously, if we look at the consequences on skin explants, we can see a super potent activity of Illuminyl, way better than kojic acid, which is one of the benchmark in terms of brightening activity. By the way, it's interesting to see that the native EGCG is also efficient, but less powerful than our glycosylated EGCG. Once again, that's a proof of the interest of those augmented polyphenols. So as you could see, Illuminyl directly targets the 4 main stages of pigmentation. By itself, this would already make it one of the most potent brightening active in the market. But to go further, we needed just a little bit more. And that's exactly what we are going to see next with Chloe. So Chloe, I would like you to explain the connection with the skin microbiota and this activity of Illuminyl that we discovered on this field.
Exactly, Matthias. You can talk about sugar and glycosylation without talking about skin microbiota, as carbohydrates are the main source of energy for the bacteria. We have shown during a first study that the bacteria were able to consume Illuminyl. And going further during a second study, we have shown that Illuminyl significantly increased the growth of bacteria of interest, the Lactobacillus acidophilus, by 27%.
Okay, that's impressive. And those bacteria that you mentioned, I believe they are known for some, let's say, superpowers. Can you explain a little bit more about the molecules that they are able to produce?
It's super interesting, Matthias. Very recently, some bacteria, including the Lactobacillus, have been described to play a key role in skin protection against photoaging, for example, through the release of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, and even whitening metabolites. And I guess you get where we're going here. Following our culture between Lactobacillus acidophilus and Illuminyl, we have found that Illuminyl was able to significantly increase the release of a metabolite, the trigonelline, by 65%. And trigonelline is just another name for methylated niacin, and this niacin derivative has been described in 2022 to have a whitening activity through an inhibitory activity of the tyrosinase, the key enzyme of the melanogenesis.
Okay, so that's actually a super smart way to reinforce the whitening activity of the ingredient through an action of the skin microbiome. But if we explain this topic a little bit more, actually it makes us think exactly of the definition of a prebiotic. So that's actually something that you have proven, right?
Definitely, Matthias. We have proven at several levels that Illuminyl acts as a true prebiotic. First, at the in vitro level, we have shown that the bacteria are able to consume Illuminyl. But even more interesting, Illuminyl was able to significantly increase the growth of bacteria of interest, such as Lactobacillus acidophilus, and the release of key metabolites, such as the trigonelline. But we went also further, and we have proved at the clinical level that the quantity of Lactobacillus species was significantly increased by Illuminyl in just 28 days of treatment. And for sure, the increase was significant in comparison to the placebo formula.
Yep.
So it's definitely a spectacular whitening prebiotic.
That's super interesting because, of course, prebiotics is a very hot trend in the market, and also to have this proof of the prebiotic activity even at the clinical level. And talking about the prebiotic activity and the skin microbiome, I think it's always important to make sure that we don't disturb the general equilibrium of the microbiome. And this is exactly what our B-biome standard is made for, right?
Yes, as you know, we have recently launched our B-biome score standard, and it was peer-reviewed and also supported by dermatologists themselves. Using this method, we have proved that Illuminyl has a score of B, which is very good, and prove that Illuminyl preserves the skin microbiota balance. To give you an idea, another very famous whitening molecule, the vitamin C, has reached a very poor score of E and negatively impact the skin balance.
Wonderful. So that's a very efficient whitening active, using the microbiome as a trigger and very respectful of the microbiome. So thanks a lot, Chloe, for sharing all those insights with us. So I think we've seen everything which is unique and exciting about this active from a biological standpoint. Now it's time to sum up a little bit before moving on to the clinical evaluation.
Thank you so much, Matthias.
Let's sum up what we have seen together up to this point. Thanks to the power of glycosylation, we were able to craft an augmented EGCG molecule that we have named Illuminyl. This brand new active directly targets the 4 main stages of pigmentation, which may be overstimulated by external causes such as oxidation or UV exposure. More concretely, this means that we inhibit the melanogenesis process, the tyrosinase activity, the melanosome's biogenesis, and even the direct transfer of melanin to keratinocytes. On top of that, Illuminyl acts as a true prebiotic, favoring the growth of a specific bacteria which is able to produce a metabolite called trigonelin, which is actually a niacin derivative able to inhibit the tyrosinase as well. So this offers a synergistic activity to the ingredient, giving it the best brightening activity that we have ever designed. Last but not least, this active has been proven to be microbiome friendly according to our B-biome standard, where other brightening benchmarks such as vitamin C were proven to have a deleterious action on the microbiome and to induce a dysbiosis. So this sums up the biological evaluation of Illuminyl. It is now time to discover the full clinical evaluation that we've performed. As you will see, this is the most ambitious clinical studies that we've ever designed. And I'm quite enthusiastic to share it with you today. Let's now dive together into the clinical evaluation of Illuminyl 388. With the development of this new active, we really wanted to take into consideration some elements that we consider as key drivers for the beauty industry today. First, a fast efficacy in just a few weeks, which is quite challenging with claims around pigmentation. Second, an efficacy at a low dosage to leave some space in the formula for our customers. And lastly, some proof of efficacy on various skin types to display our ambitions in terms of diversity and inclusivity. As you will see, we have been able to succeed on all those different axes, with the broadest clinical evaluation that we have ever performed in active beauty. 4 clinical studies on 4 skin types, with different time points, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, compared to different benchmarks of the market, and with a total number of volunteers higher than 200. This clearly demonstrates the ambition we have for this active and the trust we put in its success. Our first clinical study was performed on volunteers with an Asian skin type and obviously compared to a placebo, but also to one of the brightening benchmark in the market, vitamin C. The results you will see today are obtained using the color phase technology with a focus on 2 parameters, skin radiance and the spotted area. What we were able to evidence is that already after a month of application, Illuminyl is able to significantly improve the skin radiance while no results are obtained with the vitamin C. And in terms of spotted area, the decrease of the spotted area is way more significant than the one obtained with vitamin C. This efficacy is even stronger after 2 months of application, as you can see clearly on the pictures that we've selected. As you know, Asia is one of the greatest markets for brightening application, and those tests that we've shared today and those visual proofs will be key elements for the success of this active on this market. The second clinical test was performed on volunteers with an African skin type, and this time obviously compared to a placebo, but also to the native EGCG molecule to once again demonstrate the power of those augmented polyphenols. The measurements were performed using a chromometer to measure the skin luminosity directly on the spots. After 2 weeks, we already obtained a significant boost of the skin luminosity. But what's really interesting is to see that if the volunteers keep on using the product, there is a build-up of the efficacy and we get some impressive results after 2 months of use. And while it was not possible to observe differences between Illuminyl and the native EGCG in the short term, after 2 months of treatment, it becomes quite obvious that Illuminyl brings an extra added value compared to the native polyphenol. Once again, the illustrative pictures are very clear, with a clear improvement of the spotted area on the volunteers. Our third study had the ambition to work on some of the most challenging pigmentation spots, the aging spots that we have on our hands at a later stage of our life. The study was performed on Caucasian volunteers with brown spots on their hands. We used Raman spectroscopy to quantify the melanin content both in average on their skin but also directly in the spots. What we could observe was that after 2 months of treatment, keep in mind we are working on very challenging spots, the melanin content significantly decreased in average on the skin of the volunteers. But very interestingly, the melanin content drops even more, close to 10%, directly in the spots on the hands of the volunteers, meaning that we are clearly improving their skin tone homogeneity. Again, the illustrative pictures that we obtained demonstrate a clear efficacy of the ingredient with a clear disappearance of the aging spots. And there's one more thing. A fourth study was conducted. As you all know, a clear focus has been given to Southern Asia and Middle East for the years to come in our strategy. For the first time ever, we have been able to conduct a clinical study on Indian skin type volunteers to clearly demonstrate that this active clearly answers to the needs of this specific market. The measurements were performed using a chromometer with a focus on the skin tone and the skin tone homogeneity. As you can see, we have obtained wonderful results. In just 2 weeks, the skin tone is improved by more than 100% versus D0. But there's more. Those results get even better after 2 months. And in terms of skin tone homogeneity, the trend is impressive as well, with a clear and significant improvement after just 2 weeks, getting even better after 2 months. And once again, our visual proofs are amazing, with a very perceivable brightening activity on the skin of those volunteers. As you could see in this video, we have in our hands one of the most potent brightening active in the market. This biotech-enhanced EGCG targets directly the 4 main stages of the pigmentation mechanism in the skin, reinforced by a synergistic prebiotic activity. It's fully demonstrated at the biological level and supported by the largest clinical evaluation that we have ever performed on 4 different skin types and more than 200 volunteers, keeping inclusivity and diversity on top of our mind. And before concluding, let me just share with you some quick details about the S3D product that will support this launch. This concept will be called Lumière Noire. Inspired by the codes of the French luxury beauty, it contains Illuminyl for a brightening and corrective action on the skin, together with Mangixil for a mattifying effect, Megasan for an optimized recycling of the oxidized proteins, and our brand new low molecular weight HA, Primalial 50 Life, the most sustainable HA ever produced. I can guarantee that you will be surprised by this black serum. This brings us to the end of this masterclass. Thanks a lot for having been an active listener. I am sure you are now convinced of the incredible potential of Illuminyl 388. Be sure we will be supporting you to make this one of the most successful active in our industry once again.